The honourable member Calgary Centre.
Well, pardon me, Madam Speaker, I'm just moving my lectern over this way, and I will address you directly. Madam Speaker, some months ago, back in the spring, I asked this government about carbon capture, utilization, and storage and their position on this. But 16 months ago, I introduced a bill into this House of Commons that was proposing a carbon capture, utilization, storage system for Canada that matched what happened in the U.S. Our trade partner in CUSMA that actually has a 45Q regime that incents carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Finally, after much consultation, this government decided to move forward on this incentive to decarbonize Canada's economy by including it in their annual federal budget last spring. Well, here we are 6 months later, and where are we on carbon capture, utilization, and storage in this country? In the same place, really. In July, the government proposed their latest words on moving these measures forward. I say words because the proposal includes new, novel, and undefined measures such as a knowledge sharing agreement requirement, undefined, and yet incurring penalties of up to $2 million per occurrence if not obeyed. It's a document written without seriousness. The government has repetitively shown their lack of gravitas in their approach to this technology and its development that the rest of the world has addressed more quickly, recognizing, as the International Energy Agency does, that the world's path to a decarbonized economy, a decarbonized future, is not possible without carbon capture, utilization, and storage. It's a shame. It's a Canadian shame. Canada was, until recently, the country where the technology had advanced most quickly. Industry had spent billions advancing the technology. Governments, provincial and federal, had contributed significant amounts to this advance. What changed that took away Canadian technology leadership in carbon capture, utilization, and storage development? Well, tax incentives by our two main environmental competitors, that's the United States and Norway, both of whom produce a significant amount of hydrocarbons. Since the U.S. instituted their 45Q regime to incent CCUS technology development, our Canadian corporate leaders have moved their developments to opportunities in the United States. Carbon engineering, the world leader in direct air capture, now works primarily south of our border. The world does not stand still or even stall the way this government does. The 45Q regime in the U.S. has recently been updated in the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act so that tax incentives further encourage technological advances and decarbonization. That is the goal. This government is still ragging the puck. One key difference in structure between the design in the rest of the world and the approach this government is proposing is the inclusion of enhanced oil recovery. Here's what the government is missing in this ideological, wrong-headed, prejudicial approach to CCUS. Enhanced oil recovery produces hydrocarbons with a full life cycle carbon footprint lower than newly drilled wells. There is an internal mental block holding the government back from decarbonizing our energy in Canada. They cannot continue to pretend they are even concerned about decarbonization. I call on the government to stop sitting on their hands and move forward with a revised, effective, and accountable CCUS incentive mechanism. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources and to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canadians know that climate change is real. Canadians also know that climate action is hard. In Canada and around the world, climate action is no longer a matter of political debate or personal conviction. It's an existential challenge. That means it is also an economic necessity. Our climate plan is driven by our national price on pollution, the smartest, most effective incentive for climate action, and a new Canada Growth Fund, which will help attract billions of dollars in private capital we need to transform our economy at speed and at scale. Smart climate investments today, Madam Speaker, are good for Canadian workers, good for the Canadian economy, and good for the planet. With the largest mobilization of global capital since the Industrial Revolution already underway, Canada has a chance to become a leader in the clean energy of the future. Madam Speaker, climate change is the greatest long-term threat of our time. Taking action on climate change is the greatest opportunity of our economy, where we can create good-paying, sustainable jobs across our country. Carbon capture, utilization, and storage is about reducing emissions. CCUS also plays a critical role in Canada's economic and environmental future as we strive to meet our net zero by 2050 objective. But I want to be clear, it is not the only tool to be used. It is one of the tools in our toolbox. Budget 2021, our government proposed an investment tax credit for CCUS projects with a goal of reducing emissions by at least 15 megatons of CO2 annually. Then, after consulting with the public, stakeholders, and provinces on the design of the investment tax credit for CCUS, Budget 2022 proposed a refundable investment tax credit for businesses that incur eligible CCUS expenses starting in 2022 to contribute to our goal of cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030. The new investment tax credit is intended to be available for a broad range of CCUS applications across different industrial subsectors. For example, concrete, plastics, fuels, including blue hydrogen projects and direct air capture projects. It is not intended that the tax credit be available for enhanced oil recovery projects. A CCUS strategy for Canada will ensure Canada is well positioned to enable meaningful climate action, ensure we create good-paying, sustainable jobs for communities, people, and support a more circular economy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, I'm not sure, Madam Speaker, that addressed anything I talked about in my point here today. We're talking about moving forward with a regime that matters to the world, that actually matters to our economy and, of course, to our environment more than anything else. And yet this government stalled on it and has been stalled for as long as I've been in Parliament here on moving forward with decarbonization mechanism. Yes, it's got all kinds of programs, none of which are being effective at decarbonizing our economy. But it's a pretense, and it's a pretense that they continue to hold. And I'll read you a pretense as well from a document that the Minister of the Environment put out this summer, Options to Cap and Cut Oil and Gas Sector Greenhouse Gas Emissions. And it's a discussion document. That discussion document is premised on effectively this government saying that they had these guiding principles that were brought forward by the Standing Committee on Natural Resources, of which I am a member. I assure you, Madam Speaker, it's a pretense. Our committee never brought that forward. This document is premised on a lie, and this government has to address that. Thank you very much.
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, our government is committed to making smart climate investments to reach net zero by 2050 and build a stronger, more vibrant economy for all. Canadians understand quite well that without a serious climate plan, Canada has no economic future. Our government will help Canada continue to lead in global efforts to fight climate change, to protect our nature, and to build a clean economy that will create the good-paying, middle-class, sustainable jobs of today and tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.